Welcome to Ad Absurdum, where we go to the barricades of the culture wars. I'm Ian McLeod. Today, I'm discussing school capture. Specifically, I'm going back to an open letter I sent to St. Stithians, a prominent private school in Johannesburg, where I went many years ago. My concerns were around their race, gender, sex policies. I think in the parlance of our times, they had gone woke, and they had clearly made it their goal to be leaders in this field. When you want to become a leader in a field, you've got to open yourself up to answering questions. And that's what I set about doing. I posed a dozen or so questions, and the petition went viral, if you like, on the local school circuit. It was shared around and seemed very much to have become part of the parking lot chatter. It certainly set about a stir. As one parent put it, I kicked a hornet's nest. The response was lots of silence from the school until the pressure grew. And then the headmistress engaged with me. I ended up meeting with a number of officials at the school, the headmistress, the head of transformation, I think was the term, members of the Old Boys Committee, etc. Eventually, I did receive answers, or at least an attempt at the answers, from the office of the rector, Celeste Gallardi. Today, I'd like to just go through three of those responses. My first question, very simply, wanted to know if any case studies had been conducted. Here it is. Number one, these policies are largely untested in South Africa. Have you formulated them with reference to successful implementation abroad? Please share any relevant case studies. Now, clearly, I wanted to hear if they had looked abroad, perhaps around South Africa or the continent, for examples of implementing these race, gender, sex policies and evidence they'd been successful. Have they found any flaws? Have they taken actions to avoid those pitfalls? What I received was staggering, really. I received a list of laws and documents. Initially, well, they came in two sets. One starts with the South African Constitution, goes on to the South African Children's Act. Then there's a number of documents out of ISASA, the Independent Schools Association of South Africa. And then another set of, for some reason, separately listed 4 statutes: the National Health Act, the Schools Act, and 2 others. Now, typically, I find a list like this a cynical response to a detailed question. We don't really want to answer this, so we'll throw down a whole lot of laws and rules and documents. That's unhelpful at best. In this case, it reminds me of a refrain we'd hear from teachers a lot. I'm sure you recall the same thing. When someone reads a question in a test or exam too hastily and fires out what may be a beautiful answer, but not the answer to the given question. They pick out a key word and run with that, without realizing they haven't addressed the question at all. That's what has happened here. I've asked for whether or not they have explored practical examples of implementations of these policies, and they've given me a list of laws, rules, documents, policies, etc. Now, that's extraordinary. This is an official communication, an email from the rector's office. Perhaps it's sloppy, which is a problem in itself, but it looks very much like avoiding the question. Now, these policies, right or wrong, we can avoid that for the moment. I think we can all agree they are important. Affirming a child's gender dysphoria, for example, implementing racial theories and policies. That's what I'm asking about. The failure to answer the question is deeply problematic. Of course, they could have been honest at least and said, we don't owe you an answer. And perhaps they don't. I'm not a parent. I'm not a student. I'm not a teacher. But I asked the question and they've given me this. Number 2, question reads, please confirm whether any of the following bodies of thought are informing policy making or interactions with students. And I list critical race theory, intersectionality, grievance studies, that may be a little bit cheeky of me if you know this field, and SEL, that's social emotional learning. The response, social emotional learning, SEL, is the only one on your list, Mr. McLeod, that we have applied. Right, now, at least they're answering the question, so we're getting somewhere here. But there are serious problems here. Inherent in this is a denial that critical race theory, CRT, is used to inform policy or interact with students. However, there is a document dated June 2020, a communication from the rector. At the time, it was still on the website. It states in these words, our intention is to underpin this curriculum with critical race theory. We aim to launch this curriculum in 2021. Here's a screen grab from that document. Now, shortly after I posted this, that document disappeared. If you click the link, which is on this post, you go to a dead site on the Stithians server that says, sorry, this document doesn't exist. As it happens, I have saved that document and I will post the link to it. And we can confirm that it was their plan in June of 2020 to implement critical race theory as their word underpinning the curriculum. Now, it's a slight problem that at a time this document was up on the website, the rector was saying, no, we don't use critical race theory. Perhaps that was sloppy. They removed this document. But that begs a few more questions. By the middle of 2020, they had clearly done all the work you would need to do to be 6 months away from implementing a brand new theory to underpin curriculum across the campus. This is, I think it's 6 or 8 schools, 2 prep schools, 2 high schools, in each case a boys and a girls. I think there's foundation phase, 6th form, and perhaps 1 or 2 others. Now, they got to the point of saying, we're going to implement this in 6 months, and now claim they don't do it at all. First question, why did they want to implement this in the first place? And second, why did they backpedal? Why all of a sudden, without removing these documents, did they say, no, we're not doing this? Now, at a simple level, why did they spend all that time and money? As a parent, I would want to know that. What are they doing? Are they playing games with the curriculum they're teaching my child? And then, if they did suddenly decide to abandon critical race theory as their founding theory, why do it quietly? I believe there's no evidence of any formal announcement. It was going to underpin curricula, and then it disappeared. Now, the more cynical speculation is one that fits globally. There's this tendency to say, no, we're not teaching critical race theory. But if you dive in a little bit further and you look at what they're actually doing, they've removed the term CRT, but what they're doing is CRT. As it is with Stithians, we don't know the answer. Have they abandoned this theory? If so, why? Why do it silently? Or have they, in fact, just removed the term and gone ahead and incorporated critical race theory nonetheless? And why can't they give us a straight answer? Finally, I ask, in addition to what is provided in the newsletter and website, will you provide us a complete list of race, gender, and sex literature used to inform these policies, train teachers, and instruct pupils? The response I got from Israel Skosana, who's the head of the Old Boys Association, he was, I think, 1 or 2 years ahead of me at school. On your fourth point, the school does not rely on these ideas associated with the categories you list. Giladi, the rector, responds, we do not depend on the categories of literature you mention. Again, this is extraordinary because we know, it's no secret, they do use race, gender, sex literature for various purposes. They've shared it with us. They discuss it very openly. I've asked for a complete list, and they have this denial that it even exists. It's very strange. They could be honest and say, well, we don't owe you this list. Leave us alone. At least that would be honest. It would be something I could work with. Instead, this strange denial. Now, we can go to some of the literature that they have published. Highly sexualized literature. Here is some content on the school's FAQ list. It's a book called Pocket Queerpedia, which is available free online. I've taken a few screen grabs here. Gender affirming surgery, next to an image of some bloodied surgical scissors. Unquestioningly sharing this information unquestioningly. I'll quote from this page. There are several different surgeries that transgender, intersex, and non-binary people can undergo. These surgeries help people feel more at home in their bodies and help alleviate dysphoria. Technically, they're not wrong. There are surgeries out there, and there are people who this seems to do some good for. One example is a chap called Buck Angel, 56 years old, I think, or late 50s, born a female, and he quite openly, he or she, you choose, quite happily confirms that she will always be genetically a woman, but had breasts removed, continues to take male hormones, and has a beard covered in muscles. He's a very entertaining speaker. Yeah, it seems to have been a good decision for him. The question here is, why list this information so unquestioningly? It's certainly not taking a critical approach to gender affirming surgery. And why is a school publishing this? A school has a mandate that doesn't end with simply educating children on the curriculum, but why would it extend to sharing uncritical information on gender affirming surgery? Similar with this page, hormone replacement theory, HRT, using sex hormones to help transgender women, men, and non-binary people to physically transition. Hormone blockers can be used to assist with the process. Many report experiencing mental and emotional benefits as a result of this therapy. Again, it's unquestioning. It's leaning very much towards one side. It doesn't talk about the negatives. Absolutely, there are negatives. We don't need to go into them now, but every powerful drug has negatives. And a female taking testosterone, for example, absolutely has negative side effects. Medical transition. Medical interventions can help transgender and non-binary people align their body, sex characteristics more closely with their gender identity. Again, affirmation of radical gender ideology here, that gender is something that you can align with using surgery. Perhaps it can, but surely a school, a place of education, needs to present both sides at least. Although I would suggest in this case, the side they're presenting is extreme and not backed up by any solid reasoning. The school has given some response to this. Skosana says, a disclaimer is being placed on the reference material page where we confirm that the material is not endorsed or certified by the college, but rather further reading for parents to consider while doing their own research. I haven't checked if this disclaimer has been placed, but this is wholly inadequate. The school needs to decide, are they posting this material because it's something they endorse as quality research, or are they just willy-nilly popping up content and washing their hands of it? Here it is. We've placed it on our website. We don't know if it's good or bad. Don't blame us if it's garbage or dangerous. We're just placing it on our website. I'd suggest you have to make a call. Either we're doing the work, we're vetting this material and we're placing it up as quality material, or we're not placing it up at all. Of course, that doesn't deal with the foundational problem. Why is a school posting material on sex transition surgery at all? So these are the three questions that remain very dubiously dealt with. And I'll keep looking for answers. Did Saints do any research of case studies that show that things like affirming gender dysphoria is good? Did they find these positive results? Did they find any negative results, or were they all perfect? If there were any negative elements, have they instituted policies to deal with those? Or have they just decided that in certain circumstances, males can use female bathrooms and they can institute policy theories, educational pedagogy like social emotional learning without any case studies? Why they plan for critical race theory to underpin curricula and then suddenly turn on their heels? And why did they do that silently? Why did they do it in the first place? And why did they get rid of it? Who is responsible? Who thought critical race theory was worth plowing resources into before realizing it's not good enough? It's not good to underpin our curricula. Someone needs to answer for that. At a very minimum, they wasted resources. At worst, they risked implementing a very dangerous, what I would call a very dangerous theory. And as I mentioned, the most cynical, I think most likely approach is that they've quietly removed the word CRT and they're incorporating critical race theory quietly. And finally, why will Saints not publish a list of all their sex, gender, and race literature that they use to train teachers and engage with pupils? I invite productive argument from them, responses, earnest responses. Until then, I will keep asking questions. This has been Ad Absurdum. Until next time.